I sit before you today not merely as an academic, but as a witness to one of the most profound tragedies of our time, the death of Hong Kong as we knew it. My book, Lamentations, Hong Kong 2019 to 2025, is not just a scholarly work. It's a cry from the heart, a testament to what we have lost and perhaps what we may yet salvage from the ruins. When I wrote the four opening words of this book, Hong Kong is dead, and now is Shanghai, I felt as though I was writing an obituary of my own soul. You see, I once believed that in my China year, I'm a very old person, and more than 70 years old. I would spend peaceful days with my family, engraving seals, taking photographs, perhaps enjoying a glass of wine while listening to the music. But fate had other plans. In 2019, everything changed. What I witnessed over 2,000 tear gas canisters exploding on the campus of the Chinese University of Hong Kong, my beloved alma mater, which I had studied and taught for nearly half a century, I knew that silence was no longer an option. The university that had been my sanctuary, built by exiled scholars feeding totalitarian rule, was transformed into a battlefield before my very eye. I think you see the book cover of the book cover. In fact, this is exactly where it happened on November the 12th, 2019. Of course, I stand here after 2 months later, and I took this photograph of my friend. This book chronicles a journey, both personal and collective. So what I call an existential crisis on unprecedented proportion. It is structured in 5 parts, each marking a stage on Hong Kong's descent from freedom to authoritarian control, and my own transformation from a contemplative philosopher into a reluctant chronicler of catastrophe. And in fact, all the English papers in this book has come from this book. I have published 3 books in the last 4 years in Taiwan, but all in Chinese. And in this book, I translated most of them into English and collected into this book called Lamentations. So part 1 is the Freedom Hong Kong 2019. Capture those initial moments of shock and awakening. I wrote a letter to a former student studying abroad, trying to explain the inexplicable, how a city that had been freest place in China for over 2,000 years was being systematically dismantled. In these pages, I grapple with a fundamental question. What is truth when power determines reality? How do we maintain our humanity when faced with overwhelming tyranny? I remember writing to a student in Freiburg, that free castle in Germany, the Freiburg, where I had once studied, trying to explain the inscription of the university main building. The truth will set you free was becoming a dangerous proclamation in Hong Kong. Truth, I realized, was no longer a philosophical luxury, but a reactionary act. The part 2, 10 essays on mourning the death of Hong Kong 2020. Represent the heart of this work, 10 philosophical meditations on the human condition under oppression. Each essay examines the fundamental aspect of existence: truth, anger, fear, courage, revenge, evil, self-identity, hope, and forgiveness. These are most abstract philosophical concepts, but lived reality for millions of Hong Kongers. When the National Security Law was enacted on the 1st of July 2020, Hong Kong officially died. What followed was, I can only describe as an exercise in philosophical archaeology, digging through the rubble of our former existence to understand what it means to be human when your homeland no longer exists. I'd explore anger, not as a destructive force, but a necessary response to injustice. As Aristotle taught us, anger at wrongdoing is essential for taking injustice seriously. Our anger, I argue, was not a weakness, but our humanity asserting itself against tyranny. I examined fear, the fear of death, of prosecution, of losing everything we held dear. Yet I found the courage come not from the absence of fear, but from the presence of meaning. When we knew what truly matters, we can face everything. Part 3 is a sorrow of a mountain university in 2022, focused specifically on the destruction of academic freedom and the particular tragedy of intellectuals under authoritarian rule. The Chinese University of Hong Kong, built by scholars in exile, was witnessing the very totalitarianism its founder has fled. The irony was not lost on me. History was repeating itself, but this time there was nowhere left to run. Part 4, the lectures of an exile philosophy teacher in 2024, documents my attempt to continue teaching and thinking while living in exile. During my appointment as a visiting professor at National Tsinghua University in Taiwan, I delivered 8 lectures in various institutions throughout Taiwan and Japan. These were not merely academic presentations. They were passionate cries from my heart, exploring what it means to philosophize in exile, whether we still have a home, what we can do when we are old, and why philosophy matters when everything seems to be collapsing around us. In the lectures, I traced 3 generations of exiled philosophy scholars, Tang Junyi, my teacher Lao Siguang, and myself, each feeding different waves of totalitarianism, each trying to preserve Chinese philosophical thought in Hong Kong's free space. The tragedy is that what was once a refuge to exiled scholars has now become precisely what they fled from. Part 5 is a reflection on 5 years of exile, 2025, bring us to the present moment, and perhaps we represent the most personal and painful section of this book. Here, I confront what I call the tragic curse of 1949, the pivotal year when the People's Republic of China was founded, and the very year of my birth. I was born just a month and a half after the 1st of October 1949. And this coincidence has haunted me throughout my 75 years, creating what I can only describe as existential curse, a kind of original sin that shaped every chapter of my life. In this final reflection, written after 5 years in exile, I grapple with the profound question of what it means to be permanently displaced. On 18th of July 2020, I left Hong Kong, knowing I might never return. The anguish of this decision, choosing freedom over home, dignity over safety, have been almost unbearable. And explore the architecture of homelessness, the fractured nature of exile identity, the impossibility of ever truly belonging again. But I also discovered something unexpected in the darkness, Nietzsche's concept of amour fati, love for fate. Not passive resignation, but active acceptance of one's entire existence, including its most painful moment. This became my weapon against nihilism, my way of saying yes to life, even when life seemed to offer nothing but loss. In part 5, I also reflect on a community of exile, the scattered diaspora of Hong Kongers around the world, united by loss, but divided by how we responded to the loss. Some chose to forget and assimilate. Some maintained a fierce, almost obsessive loyalty of what was lost. I try to find a middle path that honored the past while embracing the reality of the present. Most potently, I write about redefining home. I had always thought of home as a place, but exile taught me that Home is also a state of being, something we create through our presence, our relationship, our commitment to finding meaning wherever we are. The Hong Kong I carry within me is not the same as the Hong Kong I live in, but is no less real for being different. The fifth part concludes with the meditation written just before the 36th anniversary of June 4th, acknowledging that while the curse of 1949 persists, so does the human capacity to resist, to remember, to recreate meaning from ruins. It is my testament, my witness, my contribution to a larger story of human resilience against overwhelming historical forces. Throughout all 5 parts, one truth emerges. They can destroy our institution. They can silence our voices. They can even take our homeland, but they can never destroy the truth that lives within us. They cannot extinguish the flame of human dignity that burns in every free conscience. To my fellow human Hong Kongers, whenever you may be, I say this: we are all exiled now. What we carry within us, the true Hong Kong, the Hong Kong freedom of rule of law, of human dignity. As long as we remember, as long as we resist, as long as we choose to be human rather than merely obedient, Hong Kong lives. This book is my lamentation, yes, but it also my defiance, proof that some things cannot be conquered. The human spirit, the love of truth, the hope for justice. Thank you.